Did humans go to the moon or not? One of the most controversial mysteries in human history. Could such a grandiose event, still remembered and celebrated as one of humanity's greatest achievements, be a well-constructed lie? Did humans really step on the moon, or was it all a myth to feed society's ego? This question has been the subject of debates and conspiracies for decades, and the eccentric theories surrounding this historical event fascinate everyone and fuel the search for the truth to this day. Before we continue, how about liking the video and subscribing to our channel? Why is that? Some claim it was all an elaborate cinematic staging, while others firmly believe that astronauts set foot on the lunar surface in 1969. So what is the absolute truth? Stay with us in this video as we address the theories about this subject that have been questioned until today. Apollo 11 was the name of the project to go to the moon on July 20th, 1969. American astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to step on the lunar surface. The Apollo 11 mission was the climax of an intense and highly competitive space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. The lunar conquest by the United States marked a strategic and technological triumph and triggered a wave of pride and admiration worldwide. The mission was executed in stages, beginning with the launch of the Apollo 11 spacecraft on July 16th of 1969, followed by the detachment of the lunar module and its descent onto the lunar surface while the command module orbited around it. After a series of safety procedures and preparations, Armstrong descended the lunar module ladder and delivered his famous speech, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." In total, the Apollo 11 mission lasted 8 days and was watched by millions of people worldwide via live television broadcasts. But why hasn't man returned to the moon? Well, the truth is they came back several times. After the first trip, the United States sent 6 more manned missions to the moon until 1972. But after that, they never returned. One of the main reasons was the lack of funding after the failure of the Apollo 13 mission in 1970, which generated a great deal of political attrition and led to a cut in funding by the US Congress, which led to the cancellation of missions already scheduled. However, that doesn't mean there hasn't been more exploration of the moon. Since then, several unmanned missions have been carried out to study the moon, such as the possibility of installing bases and using their resources, as well as probes that have collected more accurate information and images. There are even other plans to return to the moon, such as the Artemis program, which seeks to take the first woman and the next man to the moon in 2024, but this time with a much bolder mission. The spacecraft will land on the dark side of the moon, allowing scientists to unravel the mysteries of the part of the satellite that we can't see from Earth. But that's not the only fascinating thing about Artemis. Before its arrival, Artemis will make a 42-day journey in space to visit the moon's orbit. This mission, named after the Greek goddess of the moon, will break records set by Apollo 11 if everything goes as planned. Even today, people still debate about man's journey to the moon. These comments and debates about the subject have already been proven or even debunked by experts who have changed the entire history of the topic. There were many comments about how the technology of the time was not able to get man to the moon. But was that really the case? Well, compared to modern technology, the resources used in the Apollo missions were quite limited. But this doesn't mean that NASA's achievements can be dismissed. Actually, the space agency had the most advanced resources available at the time, and some of the computers took up entire rooms. Without this technology, mankind would not have accomplished such a feat. Another well-known phrase is, "There are no stars in the recordings." Is it a piece of evidence that they are false? Many people who do not believe in man's journey to the moon wonder why the images released by NASA do not show the millions of stars that exist in the universe, since we can see them from Earth. The explanation for this is that the cameras used at the time were very basic and did not have the same technology that we have today. In fact, the moon's surface where the astronauts stepped was illuminated by the sun, and this caused the cameras to decrease their aperture, which asked that the lights of the stars be captured more distantly. With current cameras, it would be possible to take amazing pictures of the moon, exposing details of the universe that we cannot see here from Earth. However, the lighting of the cameras used at the time is not proof that the Apollo 11 mission was forged. Probably you must have already heard this. Since there's no wind on the moon, the US flag shouldn't be moving. In one of the videos that NASA made during the Apollo 11 mission, the US flags even moved. This gave rise to several doubts on the part of people and critics. True, because its speed is very slow, the moon doesn't have an atmosphere of its own. However, that's not what prevents the flag from moving. The flag can move because of inertia itself, which is the tendency of an object at rest or in motion to stay that way unless some external force causes it to change. The weird shadows are also something that's a cause for criticism and doubt. But why? The cause is the use of artificial lights that were stationary on the moon, and that caused shadows with inexplicable coloration and angles. And the explanation? There are many facts that can affect how we see shadows, such as the moon's rugged terrain, dust, craters, and mountains. Moreover, there are many different light sources from the moon at that time, namely the sun, light reflected from Earth, sunlight hitting the moon, and the reflection of the moon's mode. All of this may have contributed to the shadow's inertia at that time. We can also talk about comments that NASA has proven to be true. For example, it has been said before that astronauts were quarantined after returning from the moon, but is it really? In reality, the astronauts did have to remain isolated for 21 days for another reason. Scientists studying the mission were concerned that the astronauts had developed some sort of unknown disease that could be harmful to public health. Consequently, it was necessary to keep them isolated until it could be ascertained that they were not infected with anything hazardous. Other information, such as moon fragments being brought to Earth and objects being left on the moon, is also regarded as true. Since the astronauts who went to the moon brought back some material from the soil and rocks, which weighed about 23 kilograms, these samples were studied by NASA scientists to better understand the composition of our natural satellite. When Armstrong first set foot on the moon, he noticed that the ground was covered in a layer of thin, slippery dust. And also during missions, they left items behind. Already on Apollo 16, Charles Duke left his family's plate on the moon, but due to solar radiation, it is likely that the photo was destroyed. So what can we say about man's going to the moon? There are other points that moon landing deniers make about dust, radiation, or shadow, as we've talked about here, but there's no credible evidence to suggest such a conspiracy. So the bottom line is that the moon landings really happened, and not even the Soviets questioned it at that time. And that meant something in the Cold War era. In addition, a total of about 400,000 people worked on the Apollo missions. So, we can believe that there were enough witnesses, too much cost, and work involved to be just a hoax. What do you think? Did man really go to the moon or not? Thank you for sticking with us until the end, and see you in the next video.